You're listening to Tagging Up, your go-to source for all things youth baseball and helping your player along the journey. Let's get into it. All right, welcome back to Tagging Up. Thanks again for joining us. I am very excited that we are joined today by Mark Martinez. He is a longtime head coach and also assistant coach with San Diego State. Mark, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Excited, man. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm going to let Coach Byler start chatting here because he's got a lot he wants to talk about.
Take a little more deeper than that. Mark's been coaching for 39 years. He was at San Diego State for 18. Before that, he was at New Mexico. And we're going to get into that. And, he's also, I'm sure his greatest accomplishment is he's got a Division I baseball player's son. So that's always a big deal.
Very cool stuff. Absolutely.
Very cool. So what Tagging Up is this is a platform for us to talk about, college baseball, high school baseball, and how to get there, and once you get there, how to stay there, and how to be good. And you were an assistant coach for a long time. You were a head coach for a really long time. You were a recruiting coordinator, involved in all that stuff. So we're going to talk about, what is it? One is, what do you look for as in a high school player? And I know there's a lot of, there's metrics, there's makeup, there's grades, and then there's talent. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes involved in that. So, when you go out and you're looking at a high school sophomore or junior or even a senior, what are some things that stand out? I do remember one story about how the little kid, Danny Sheehan, ended up playing for you and became an All-American, but you weren't there to recruit him.
No, I was there to actually see Ty France and CJ Saylor play. He played on the same high school team as them. And it was just one of those deals where, I'm kind of following up on a couple of our commits and all of a sudden, this little guy's kind of running around the yard with his hair on fire and you can't not look at him play. And kind of back up a little bit, and it's great that you brought Danny up, is that, there's easy things to evaluate to me. Can he run? Can he throw? Can he field? Can he hit? Can he hit for power? The 5 tools, right? Those things, you can put a number on, you can see it, but I always talk about the 6th tool, and it's the CHP grade, and it's the can he play grade. And, kind of piggybacking on the Danny Sheehan thing is that you're watching a guy that, can wear a pitch in a big moment, read a ball in dirt, be in the right spot on a relay, hustles on and off the field, great teammate, demonstrates that by what he's doing, in between innings, those kinds of things. And for me, that's a huge grade that I think is overlooked a lot of times, is because again, you can go to watch a kid take BP or take ground balls, and those flashy dudes are going to stick out, right? That and those less than flashy guys that have some talent or have something of the 5 tools that grades out big. You might have a big arm, is a pitcher, or even a guy that's at shortstop, and all of a sudden he's firing balls over there, 94 miles an hour. Pretty easy to grade, but maybe they don't have those 4 other big tools. But finding that one tool that can fit in your program is pretty easy. Like, I like that guy's bat. He can, he gets bat the ball. It doesn't strike out a lot. Or you can, can he run, right? Okay, that's pretty easy. Put a stopwatch on a guy, he's running down the line, those kinds of things. And so my biggest deal is, can he play grade? And that grade encompasses so many things. It's not just baseball related, right? Is he a good dude? Right? What's his family like? What's his parents like? And the can he play thing is really the majority of college baseball rosters are made up of guys that are can they play type guys. The 5-star guys they're gonna get recruited. They're gonna land in college, especially with NIL. They're gonna play a lot because talent wins for sure, absolutely. But you start looking around, you might have 2 5-star guys on your team. There's 7 other dudes that are out there that are gonna have to find a way to win baseball games. and that's where the can he play, and Danny demonstrated that, and we asked him to walk on. It was late in the game, and he walked on. He ends up being an All-American. He was the player of the year in our conference his senior year. And it was just one of those deals where I went to watch a couple of other guys play. One's in the big leagues, Ty France, 5-star guy, right? Easy to kind of evaluate that guy, really good player. And CJ Saylor at the time was the number one rated perfect game All-American catcher at the time. So those two guys were pretty easy to grade out. But then, you look at Danny's career and he ends up being a player of the year in our conference, and really is based on the fact that he caught my eye that day. And no less than, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 days after that, he was down on our, in our campus doing an unofficial visit, and we're walking him around, and we didn't have a whole lot to offer him. Hey, bro, you got an opportunity, and where do you like to play the most? So he was an infielder in high school, but the day I watched him play, he's playing right field, and barely see him out there, little guy. But he comes to campus, and I'm like, hey, what do you like to play? And perfect answer, right? He just says, Coach, I'll play anywhere. I'll do whatever it takes to get on the field and help us win. And again, that's kind of the right mindset that you want from all your baseball players. And the majority of the guys that you're getting on campus are going to be those worker bees. Those guys are going to help you win championships. There's going to be guys that are, again, we've had first rounders, we've had first pick of the draft here at San Diego State. And so those guys are the guys that help us win for sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, in your time at San Diego State, you had 50 guys drafted. 13 of them made it to the big leagues. So I mean, you've had your experience with those 5-star guys. And then the full disclosure is that I've known Mark for probably 25 years. So
right.
I've heard a lot of these stories, and one of them sticks out a lot is when we were talking probably 15, 20 years ago about the showcases and the players at some of the showcases, and how I think you said, and you'll can expand on this. We were talking about, showcase guys are showcase guys, and then, but you'd rather see them in their high school, environment, because, and I think you said, if I show up at your school, I already know that you're good.
Right.
I want to see all the intangibles. Maybe you go over, how do you react? Things like that.
Right.
And
yeah,
that always stuck with me.
Absolutely. Well, and it's also what you do in between the times you're on the field or you're at the plate or you're on the mound. You try to get in a viewing area where you can see in the dugout. What are the conversations, and are people engaged with that person? Those things are huge. And yeah, the showcase deal is, and they definitely serve a purpose. It's a way to get metrics and get grades and stuff like that. But if you fall prey to those things, I think sometimes it gets lost. Is I want to see a kid play an important game, and when you're playing a high school game, in a field at Steel Canyon High School, and it's out in the desert, and it's windy and it's gross, and you're playing East Lake High School, and it's a must-win situation. There's pressure on every pitch, because it means something to that school to win that game, and all those other things kind of go out the window. 2 strikes, bases cranked. Is a guy willing to throw a competitive pitch in that situation as a pitcher or as a hitter? You got 2 strikes, or are you up there? Are you going to compete and find a way to get the ball in play? That's not going to be shown just in a showcase setting. It's just not. And I think, Brian, you and I talked about this. Is I can't tell you how many times that I would go recruit a showcase or whatever, and then the day's over, you go to the hotel, and there's a bunch of teams sitting around the pool, and hey, how's it going, guys? Hey, what's up, coach? How's it going? And how'd it go today? How's good? Who won? Kind of look at each other. What was the score? Don't know. Yeah, but I could tell you this. You go find a high school game, and after that, there's going to be some long faces. They're going to know exactly the score, and they're going to probably know exact the moment that they lost that game, or on the flip side, the exact moment they won that game, or what led up to that success, or led up to that failure. We made an error in the third. It killed us. We missed the cutoff. we didn't get a tag down, little things like that. And then in the showcase settings, a lot of times it's like, well, how'd you do today? Well, I was 3 for 4. Okay, well, good. What was the score? Don't know.
Mm.
And what were the key moments of the game? Hmm, don't couldn't tell you. How many innings did you play? And
Yeah.
that's the other thing is like, how many did you play today? Because there's 2 hour time limits sometimes. And they would be like, I don't know, 5, 6. Well, no, you played them all. You played them all. It was, or I don't know. I think we played all 7. No, you only played 5 today, guy. Yeah, it was pretty slow. And so that, and I'm not downplaying the importance of showcases, but I do like to see kids in competitive environments when it means something. And we're in playoffs right now with high school baseball here in San Diego. And I make a point to try and get out and watch. Even now I'm retired, I want to go watch good baseball because it's fun. It's fun to watch those kids compete, and inevitably it always happens too. Is that freshman that's pulled off the bench that all of a sudden he's going to pinch run or pinch hit, or maybe he's got to throw an inning. They got to get through an inning, or he's a matchup dude. He's going to find himself in that situation in a high school game, and it's going to be in everything. Can they advance to the next round? And those things are fun to watch for sure. And then what happens is that the true colors come out. And again, just kind of going back to the Danny Sheehan deal, is that day that I went to watch him play, Ty France, of course, had a key base hit, and Danny, again, little Danny Sheehan run around there, in the outfield, makes a good play, and he gets a critical bunt down to tie the game. They ended up losing the game, but I mean, huge, right? That's a big deal. And I'm not recruiting bunters, but I'm recruiting that mindset. That is he willing to do it in that moment to help his team win in a high school baseball game.
Yeah. And I've said to a million kids, around is like, you never know who's watching. You never know who knows somebody,
Mm.
and at some school and says, hey, you should come look at this kid. I mean, there was the other example is one of your pitchers, Bruce Billings,
Mm-hmm.
ended up making it to the big leagues, and now he's a professional coach with the Cubs. We went to go watch Adam Jones,
Mm-hmm.
with not Bruce Billings, but he just
Right.
happened to pitch that day and was so good. But the
Mm-hmm.
other part is like, you were at San Diego State for 18 years. If I had a dude here in North Carolina, I would call you and say, hey, I got a dude. And I might be a opposing player that my son was playing. You just don't
Exactly.
know. And these kids kind of take it for granted where they just go through the motions, especially in the showcase thing. It's all about what can I do to get noticed?
No,
So
that's such a great point too. Again, I'm enjoying baseball in a different light, but just going back to that Steel Canyon Eastlake deal, I went to go watch one of our friends play, and all of a sudden, this another kid pops up, right? And you're like, I need to call some dudes on this guy. I hadn't seen him play. He's a sophomore. I'm like, okay, that guy's pretty good. And he didn't know I was there. He didn't know my connection. I wasn't wearing San Diego State gear or nothing. And I look around, and there's really no other college coaches there. And then I'm like, well, I got to get the word out on this guy because I think he's going to be, once summer hits, he's going to have a lot of dudes on him. Well, get some of the guys that I know, a Brock Ungrich over at USD, or Ben Orloff over at UC Irvine, and say, hey, there's a kid over here at Still Keenan you might want to follow. And when you get an opportunity to connect with this guy, after his junior year, you need to get on this guy. So, or
mhm.
going into his junior year, and I did that, and again, you never know who's watching, you never know
Yeah,
who's out there, and how you can connect those points wherever it might be.
So if
that's
you've
It's
got I'm just curious, if you're a college scout, if you've got 1,000 kids, right? If
mm-hmm.
you've got to get down to 200 or 150, whatever the number is it the first funnel is just pure metrics, and then beyond that, you get into the intangibles? Or it could work the opposite. It could be the intangibles, and you have no idea if this kid can throw above 75.
Well, what I'll tell you is that for sure the metrics and the talent bases are definitely going to be funneled in first, right?
Mm,
Those guys are going to hit the list right away because
sure.
you go out and watch guys, a center fielder, a shortstop, a catcher, a pitcher, whatever. you're going to go get your eyeballs on that guy that all of a sudden you saw somewhere that this guy's, throwing 90 with an 81-mile slider. You want to go see it. Those guys are going to get on the list. But what happens is that there's going to be those other guys that are going to be either in that situation, high school game, showcase, or whatever,
Mm,
that are going to do something that catches your eye, and
gotcha.
it might be as simple as warming up the right fielder when no one else would do it, right? Like silly stuff like that. You just go, okay, who's this guy, and why is somebody not in right field right now? And this guy's grabbing his glove, and infield, outfield, that dude was catching, and
Right.
he runs out to
Right.
right field. Like,
Mm,
for me, that's a guy you're going to say, okay, I need to watch that guy a little bit, and he might get on that list if you're 150 or 200, whatever.
hmm
And then you got to go back and see him play. You got to see that, over a long
Okay.
period of time, can that guy play at a Division I level? Like you said, you
Right.
might see a guy that's got an intangibles, but he's not ever going to break. Break an egg if he throws it against the wall. Well,
Right. Right.
good dude. Yeah, he's a good dude, but he's probably not going to help you win baseball games. But
Right.
and so I do think that absolutely, the talent piece, the metric piece is going to definitely get everyone, all those dudes on the list.
hmm
But then once you get out there and start watching, those other worker bee guys are the guys that kind of start to show themselves. All right, I'm going to stay on this guy, and we have a lot of them. Danny's one of them. I got to tell you a story about a guy that you guys might know. And this is a long time ago, and this is an easy evaluation. But what really struck me about this guy is the exact scenario that I just told you. Is that it was at a showcase, area code game tryouts in Las Vegas, Nevada. And this guy, goes infield, outfield. He throws from the outfield. He takes ground balls at short. He goes behind the plate, playing catch or catcher. Doesn't start in the game, and in those situations, you guys know how it works. Everything's posted on the wall, and they rotate dudes in and out on positions once they start the game.
Yep.
And right field is open. No one's going out there. And this kid that caught looked really good behind the plate and grabs his stuff and he runs out there. Um, he's not even, I think they were hitting. It was just kind of one of those things. Like he's not going to sit there and wait. He just grabbed his glove and went out there. And I'm like, okay, I got to watch who this guy is. And I look at my roster, and it has a number and doesn't have a high school next to it. So I got to go down there and check out, from the scouts that are running this deal. Who's this guy? Hey, what high school is this kid going to? This Bryce Harper dude. And he's like, oh well, he's not in high school yet. He's in 8th grade.
Holy
And
Jesus.
he's running around with all these, juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
But it said a lot about him. I mean, obviously he's uber talented, and he might get a bad rap, and people think he's a turd or whatever. I'll always go back to that and go, you know what? Somebody taught him to do it right. And I think
Mm,
his acceleration, through everything, obviously whatever is presented on the field might not be reality, on the bench or whatever. I know he got in a fight with one of the pitchers or whatever, when he's a rookie. When he's a rookie, think about, like, he's trying to flex his
19-year-old
muscle.
rookie.
Right. And so, but it said a lot about that kid, right? Like, he's got the
yeah.
talent, and he's pumping balls out with a wood bat, at a AAA stadium in Las Vegas. And you're like, okay, this guy's going to be like a big round, and he's an 8th grader, but he's out there trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
People are everyone's looking at each other. There's no right fielder, man. Of course, he grabs his glove and he sprints out to right field. And you're like, oh, caught your eye. Well, of
Mm,
course, the BP caught your eye. The guy throwing down to second base caught your eye. But that said a lot about him to me.
yeah. Yeah.
And I think him being in the big leagues, obviously very talented, but I think he does a lot of good things as well. And he's grown
Yeah.
up, right? Now he's kind of got the city of Philadelphia all in his corner now, right?
Right.
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 So kind of cool.
When getting into the showcase and get noticed, but we have, because I know how important it is, and everybody feels like I got to go spend $10,000 each year to get my son to every single showcase that he can be evaluated. And I don't necessarily agree with that. And I know that there is a spot for it and there are metrics and things, but I mean, we have a kid out here that didn't really play much baseball and he did not go to a single showcase. And I told his parents, I said, listen, there might be something here. And when he was about 15, there might be something here. And I said to the kid, where would you want to go to college? And he says, I want to go to Air Force. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Okay.
And so I called Jimmy and Kaz, and I said, this kid is so good that he could play for you now. And this was a few years ago when Air Force wasn't good. I know they're really good now. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, and they said, really? So they went and saw him, and boom, done. He's got his rights. He didn't go to a single showcase. Now,
Right.
full disclosure, he is 6'7" and throws 94, but but he,
Pretty good. Yeah. Pretty
but
good.
a lot of it is just getting in front of the right people,
Absolutely.
and sometimes these kids get lost in the shuffle when they go to a showcase, or the showcase guys are all about their personal metrics. And going back to what you said is that you want to watch a high school game and watch the guy compete, not showcase,
Mm-hmm.
I guess is the word. So if
Right.
you're a high school kid right now and you're not, throwing 90 plus on the mound, or you're not, 100 mile an hour exit velo, or, you're not throwing a 100 mile an hour pull down or whatever, how, how would you recommend they get noticed?
Well, I think do your research first and foremost. If you're from Southern California and you're trying to go to a showcase in Northern Florida, probably not a good decision, right? You want to get in front of the people, like you said, that if you're sitting here in Southern California and there's a million schools that you can play at, go to something. You do your research. Research. Okay, there's a showcase in Irvine, Great Park. Sign up for that deal, because there's going to be enough people sitting there that are going to watch that. And like a great example is like, okay, this guy's touching 90, and let's say he's a sophomore moving into his junior year, and he hasn't really done a lot. Not a lot of people. Maybe he didn't do a summer of travel ball, whatever. That's a great opportunity for a guy like that to go and get in front of the right people. Um, you know, a 90 mile an hour arm, probably in Florida is a dime a dozen, right? Like, and I shouldn't say that about California, but I mean, if you're overlooked somehow or you're not getting a lot of looks moving from sophomore to junior, junior to senior, then you do your research and say, okay, what showcase is going to offer me the best opportunity to showcase what I do? And is it a cattle call? Because there's plenty of them out there that'll cap it at a certain number, so they get a certain amount of times on the mound or whatever. Um, or are you just going in to throw a bullpen? Probably not the best. You would still want to throw your bullpen and light up the gun, but then at the same time, you want to face at least 3 to 5 hitters to showcase what you can do against a live hitter. Or you want to pitch inside? Can you throw a secondary pitch when you're even or behind in the count? Stuff like that that's going to get you noticed and then get that train rolling the way you want it to roll. But you don't have to spend the $10,000
Because
hustling all over just to do showcases. And I had a son that went through travel ball, and we did the Phoenix tracks and we did the Georgia tracks and stuff like that. Those are definitely experience based and they're fun and those kinds of things. But um, the recruiting people are spread pretty thin, right? Like there's so much going on during the summer. When the recruiting people are compacted is in the spring in your high school games, and you go to a game that there's a lot of dudes there, coaches. There's someone there to see those worker bees, those ancillary dudes that are sitting on the outside. Those are the guys that can shine in that moment. That's when you probably should say, okay, to bring my A game today, because I can look in the stands and see that there's 15 schools here to watch Jimmy throw, and that's my turn to show what I can do. And it's a
that's
big game.
perfect.
So
Because I know
yeah.
we had a mutual player, second baseman for you for the last few years, and his parents traveled with him to every showcase around the country, and he's a
Yep.
Southern California kid that ended up at San Diego State. And I said
Right.
to
Exactly.
I said, was it worth it? And they said, no, it wasn't worth it at all because we
No.
could have stayed home. We could have went to if we're going to showcase, a showcase in Southern California. And he ended up at San Diego State and, played
Hmm.
4 years, 5 years. So,
Yeah.
but
Well,
they,
and Caden, truth be told, we were definitely one of his schools he wanted to go to. And so was it worth it? He would have told you when he was a sophomore he wanted to go to San Diego State. You know what I mean? That like you could have saved some of that money after that, right? You stop going to those things, play your high school season, play some travel ball, and ready to go. And so this, I don't know if they call it dream school, but it's definitely where he wanted to go to school, and did very well for us.
so now I'm a high school sophomore, and my school is, San Diego State, and I want to go to San Diego State, but I'm not the dude yet that I'm gonna be. How do I get on your radar?
Well, one of them, and again, that's a true story. Uh, Figure out a camp. Find a camp that you can go to at that school. That again, do your research. Make sure it's not a money maker, and there's 175 dudes out there. You look at those camps, and we hold one. At least we used to, where it was a smaller one, and it was, come in. It's an opportunity to do what you do over a 2.5 day period. Um, and we have a young man currently on our roster that's probably going to be the freshman player of the year that was overlooked in high school. He was surrounded by a bunch of dudes and wasn't offered a whole lot of anything, but he came to camp and again, character was huge. He was unbelievable, great character. Parents were off the charts, all those things. And he comes to camp and he shows what he can do. And we're like, all right, well, what offers do you have? He's like, oh, I got it. And you're like, wait a minute. He comes to our camp and we're like, we got to get this guy, and we're late in the game. We find a way to get him to campus, and he's going to end up being probably the freshman player of the year at San Diego State this season. But part of it was he wanted to stay in Southern California. He came to our camp with the idea, this is where I want to go. And he hadn't gotten a whole lot of love from us because, again, just kind of overlooked. It was crazy. And again, says a little bit about us. We didn't do our homework. Um, and didn't see him enough. But we're fortunate that he came to camp and showed what he could do in a very short amount of time. But all those intangible things were shown in that camp setting because he was engaging, he asked questions, he was willing to do whatever we asked him to do. He's on and off the field. It was just, he was fun to be around. I'm like, this is the guy we want. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden he shows up and the guy's hitting tanks and hitting nearly 400 as a freshman. And I think I would say even going into this fall, again, I wasn't around, but depth chart wise, he was probably sitting in a third string situation in the fall, having to work his way into a starting role, which he ended up doing not even a quarter way through the season. He was playing pretty much every day. um, and but he busted his tail in order to do that. And so that, I think that's an opportunity. If you say, okay, I want to go to North Carolina State, well, find out when there's a camp that might lend itself to that opportunity to be around the coaches and make sure it's not, because we all run those camps, everybody does it, those are more showcase type deals, and it's over 100 participants. That's hard to manage. If you're looking at a camp that's in the 50-60 range, that now you can start saying, okay, I'm going to have an opportunity to engage with the head coach, engage with this assistant coaches, get some turns in as far as batting practice. I'll be able to do a throwing program. I'll be able to throw a bullpen for them, and then throw in the game in a short amount of time. And I think that can accelerate your recruiting opportunity. Not to say that you're going to end up like our guy, but it will accelerate it in the fact that if you go and show a little bit of those metrics that we were talking about earlier, their radar is going to definitely get perked up, and then they're going to follow you for sure.
All right, well, that's great. We have about 3 minutes left for production here, and the one question I do have is, how do you feel about JUCO guys and And is that a positive thing? Because a lot of kids now have this D1 or bust mentality.
Well, I think it's a positive thing for sure, especially now with there's so many moving parts to the recruiting world with the transfer portal, and the roster situations are so fluid. And so, a lot of times there might be really good players that are ending up having to go to junior college, but it might be the best step for them to get to that next step, the Division 1, Power 5 type program. You see it all the time, but in today's day and age, I think that part of our baseball world is starting to do better, based on the fact that there's so many players that aren't matriculating into those Division 1 schools because everyone's kind of moving around, and so the roster spots are being plugged up by that movement. For a high school kid, that's all of a sudden he's the tweener guy, he's the 25% guy, he's the walk-on invited guy. All of a sudden that might be a situation where you're going to be sitting for 1 or 2 years anyway. Junior college might help that player out to go and mature and get a ton of at bats or get a ton of innings on the mound, and then matriculate on to a Division 1 program. And so, I think, it's going to grow. It's going to continue to grow, I think, as we move forward with this chaos that's going on with the transfer portal. And it's starting to happen just this week now that seasons are winding down and stuff. And now you're starting to see this influx of kids going into the transfer portal, and it's not all bad players. They're all good players.
Mhm.
And so you start to think about it, it's hard to put a square peg in a round hole sometimes, and some of those kids that might not get that opportunity or not getting that type of love or that scholarship offer or that invited walk-on situation. Maybe you go to a really good junior college and that's going to might change your career path as you move forward. So, do I like it or not? I mean, I think it's the reality of what's going on. We all got to kind of live with it. And do I like the transfer portal? No, I don't like how it works. I don't like that they can just transfer as many times as you want. But at the same time, you got to embrace it. You got to be a part of it because it's not going to change. Not in the short term. Maybe long term. The short term, you got to either get on the train or you're going to get left behind. You're going to be stuck at the. You're going to be stuck at the depot, brother.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it looks like our time is coming to an end. Rob, did you have anything?
No, other than thank you, Coach Martinez. Really appreciate you taking the time. This has been fantastic. I mean, having a perspective from someone like you is exactly what we're trying to do here, right? To hear it from,
Mm-hmm.
to hear it from your travel coach, to hear it from your high school coach is one thing, but to, someone with your experience, it's a whole different world. So really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Well, you guys made my day. I appreciate you. I'm retired, man. So I get a golf game in. I get to talk to you
There you
guys in
go.
the
It's a good
evening. So
life,
it's a lot of
man.
fun. It's a good life. But it was a lot of fun. I love talking baseball, and hopefully we connect at some point down the road as well.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Make sure to share us with friends, subscribe and like us on your podcast platform, and follow us on social media. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.